Welcome to My Healthy Mind. I'm Michael Hunter. History has shown us that some of the most profound works of art have been created under unimaginably traumatic circumstances. Anguished drawings made in concentration camps, tortured poetry written in prison, heartrending music created by slaves. Modern science has long recognized the power of creativity to heal trauma. Therapies involving music, writing, painting, theater, dance, and many more are now widely practiced and having brilliant success. Today on My Healthy Mind, we look into the many creative ways that art is being used by both adults and children to help cope with trauma. Let's talk about it. It's a well-known fact that feelings associated with trauma need an outlet, and that to internalize or deny these feelings causes all kinds of physical and mental maladies. Typically, talk therapy is recommended, but for some people, talk therapy, at least talk therapy alone, just doesn't work. That's when you have to get creative. Today, we're talking with a young woman who, through art therapy, painting, has found a means of self-expression and healing. Gina, welcome to My Healthy Mind.
Thank you.
Gina, you're a mom of two. You got two little ones and two dogs, and you have a husband.
I do.
And life is going pretty smoothly with that?
For the most part, as much as it can be with a husband, two dogs, and two little boys.
Right. But it wasn't always so.
No.
And you had some trauma in your history. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think the best place to begin is in St. Louis about 7 years ago when I was rock bottom, actually. It was a long time coming. The trauma began when I was about 11, and in St. Louis, I was in my early 30s, and I had a law degree and knew I was capable of all sorts of things, but I was living in a studio apartment in a terrible neighborhood and barely functioning. I didn't have a job at the time. Like, I was stuck, and I didn't know why. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And I sort of drug myself to a low-cost therapy clinic and was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder because of, again, the events that started when I was 11, abuse from someone. And it just affected me my whole life, and I didn't know what it was. So I finally was able to put a name to that sort of darkness that had been following me around for so long. And sort of because of that darkness that started when I was just 11, I put myself in situations where I was more likely to be abused again and again and again and again. So it all just came to a breaking point where I wasn't functioning at all anymore. And again, I reached out to a therapist who helped me reach out to my family. She said, based on what you're going through, you cannot do this by yourself. You need help, you need support. And so I was moved from St. Louis to Ann Arbor, where I was able to just focus on nothing but getting better, figuring out what was wrong and fixing it. And I'm so lucky that my family was in a position to help me the way that they did. After a few duds, I found a wonderful therapist, and that sort of set me on the road to getting better. And it really did. I'm a completely, well, that's sort of dramatic. I'm not a completely different person, but I am so much more able to function and just deal with life now, and I have a life worth living. Before I didn't, and now I do. It's full, it's wonderful, it's everything I had hoped for and didn't think was possible for me.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Wellness Center has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan.
They get a chance to know that somebody's on their team.
We think nobody else feels the pain that we feel. We feel like I'm the only one, but that is so untrue.
Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery.
Working through my problems and seeing that I'm not the only one that has to cope has really brought me to a place where now it's okay to talk about it.
Because if you keep stuff to yourself, you can't overcome. We all need one another.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
During that journey, you obviously tried different methods of, I'll call it therapy, or different approaches to healing. What are some of those things that you tried before you landed where you are?
There was a lot of talk therapy, and a lot, years of it, because I was never diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder until I was much, much, much older. But from adolescence, there was, I was acting out. I was doing all the things that you would expect an abuse victim to sort of do, and was having behavioral problems. And there was a lot of therapy, but I never found anyone that clicked, no one I trusted. I did a lot of lying. So it was really nothing but talk therapy until I met Sibel. The thing that worked best for me was the art therapy. I think because it wasn't so intense. I didn't have to relive things that happened. I didn't have to explain. It just sort of, I painted and I talked. Me remembering all of this stuff and me talking about all of this stuff that happened as I was painting, I think it's easier to talk about difficult things when half of my mind is focused on something else. And I was able to remember traumas that I had forgotten happened, just because it untangles my brain in such a way that I can access those thoughts. I spent so much time trying not to think about these things and trying to hide them and push them away and ignore them. And with the painting, I just felt more comfortable sort of diving in.
Art therapy is really all the arts, not only art therapy, but music therapy, performance art, really any creativity. I would include cooking or knitting. Of course, we also know nature is therapeutic, but any creative expression really can allow a lot of what is inside of us that is not available to our frontal cortex, our problem-solving minds, for it to surface and find expression, find resolution. And in the expression, often meaning arises. In the Western world, we split so many things up, so often the arts only are for those people that have special talent, or even if we think about singing, if you don't have a good voice, you should not be. But I would argue that for all of us, we need to be dancing sometimes, we need to be singing, whether it's in the shower or in the car, and we need to be engaging with the art materials simply because it's therapeutic. Parts of our psyche need creative self-expression because there's just no other way to get some of what is inside of us outside of us. And that is important. People think that people who go to therapy, they have to be pitied, or they're there's still judgment in the 21st century around therapy, that it's a sign of weakness or something. I would argue the opposite, that my clients are some of the bravest, most courageous people I know, because they come in to face some of the things that are most difficult. They do the emotions. And I would actually worry much more about people who keep it all inside, and then, it can explode sometimes in violent ways. So the arts and creativity, any form of it, whether it's in the therapy setting or, in our everyday, are essential. And it's fun. It's so much fun. And God, do we all need more joy in our lives periodically, to bring balance to some of the difficulty of life. I don't know a single person, not everybody's traumatized or goes through some of what Gina had to endure, but life is difficult and complicated in the best of times, so we need to have joy in it, and what better way than the arts to bring it.
When you were done with a particular painting or had progressed through it during the session, did you discover any insights that helped you afterwards?
The process itself was helpful for the speaking, and the way I paint now is a meditation almost, and it's this bringer of peace.
So one of the things that happen in trauma is that it robs you of your self-confidence and your self-worth. So it's not only what happens, but after what happens, what is left in your mind as self-talk. So Gina, when she first came in, had an incredibly brutal inner critic that basically was talking pretty much on an ongoing basis and finding fault with herself, with everything that was going on in her life. Whenever something went wrong, it was her fault. There was very little ability to be able to see that some of what happened had resulted in why she was having a hard time coping. So she was able to make it. First, we named her inner critic. It really starts with being able to differentiate our thoughts from ourselves, to be able to label them as, oh, this is just a thought, not necessarily reality. And this is really the basis of mindfulness in some ways. And so it becomes a practice of trying to catch the thoughts over time, recognizing the ones that are, critical and brutal and untrue. And so at some point, she by herself had this idea to name her inner critic, and she named her Brenda, and this painting is about that. And she wanted to actually write the words, so sometimes you can write, words can come into art therapy as well, write the words that were going on in her mind, and being able to see them again outside of her made it so much easier for her to recognize that they were simply not true. She's, as you've heard, one of the most biggest hearted people that I know, generous, rescuing animals, a total humanist, and yet her mind was telling her, you are worthless, you are selfish, all of these things that then impacted her daily life. How can you possibly feel good about yourself when you're believing the thoughts that are saying you're no good, you'll never amount to anything?
And you're finding that it definitely works for you.
Seems to be. I haven't lost my marbles yet entirely. So I think I need a creative outlet. I found other creative outlets as well. Painting is a very sort of arduous. Sometimes I have to, I have to have a clean space, which is not always easy with the dogs and the boys, and I have to have all my paints out, and I have to set it up, and that sometimes is not something I can do. I can't do that every day. I just don't have the time, but I do have time every day to create something. And Even if something as simple as picking out my youngest's outfit. My older one will not let me pick his outfits anymore. He has an opinion. But my youngest, I can dress him, and that's a creative outlet. Drawing chalk on the sidewalk is a creative outlet. Any sort of creative outlet, I think, helps me. Painting is the most dramatic, probably, and the most lasting, but it's also the hardest to pull off, just logistically, given my current situation. But I think it's the creative meditation. I heard it put once. Someone was talking about their creative process, and they said, I just luxuriate in the process. And I think when I paint, I'm able to luxuriate in the process of the creativity. But even if it's a shorter spurt of creativity, I think it's a nice outlet that I need. So yeah, decorating the living room, organizing the kids' toys, getting them dressed, setting up the Lego men, just so, it's all a creative outlet for me, I think.
Let's take a look at some of that.
If you're having any kind of mental health crisis, we can help. At Team Wellness Crisis Centers, you'll be seen immediately, stabilized in our own private facility, and given all the care you need to get better. Don't wait. Call the Team Wellness Helpline at 1-888-813-TEAM. It could be your lifeline.
Art therapy has been found to be effective in treating a whole range of mental health disorders, and it's also applicable across the ages. Children naturally go to art to express themselves, but also with adults, we've found it to be incredibly helpful and healing. We have scientific evidence now around the detailed ways in which art therapy works and helps with various clinical populations. There is, data that shows that it decreases anxiety and depression. It improves self-image. To give another example, lots of research done with eating disorder populations or with Alzheimer's, with clients who have different dementia diagnoses. It's been used with veterans. I know of an art therapist who's taken their old veteran uniforms and then transformed them into paper, and then they wrote about some of what they went through. In the field of mental health, and especially trauma treatment, I think we have to give more space to the expressive arts, because trauma especially cannot be reached or healed with functions of the frontal cortex, because what happens during trauma is that our frontal cortex goes off. So everything that happens is really stored in the body, and therefore when we go about trying to heal it, talking about it is really not reaching the core of where everything is stored. So we need to have these ways that allow us to bypass the mind. Gina was saying how when she was painting, it made it easier because she didn't have to be inundated with the feelings of the trauma or go right back to the memory of it. It creates this distance, and it's just a gentler way to help people heal. It's enough hurt is done during the trauma, so we want to have and use ways that hurt as little as possible.
Gina, do you have any thoughts or words of encouragement you would like to give to the people watching who may be at a place where they need to look deeper for therapy outlets like art therapy?
I do. A couple, probably. I think first of all, don't ever give up on yourself. No matter what you've been through, no matter what you think you deserve better. And it's going to be hard. It's not going to be fun. Might get worse before it gets better, but it's worth it. And as someone who understands that darkness, I truly do. If I can claw my way out of it, anybody can. And you have to really want to. I don't want that to sound condescending, but it just takes this sort of determination, and it's hard to muster that when you are so sad and so lost and don't know what's going on. You have to dig deep and you have to find it somewhere, and you have to advocate for yourself and just know that it's worth it, and there's better days out there. There really are. It's possible.
Anxiety, depression can happen to anyone for all kinds of reasons, especially during difficult and trying times that no one should have to go through alone. At Team Wellness, trained, compassionate, caring professionals will get you into the right treatment so you get better. Team Wellness. You are not alone. Next time you need to see a doctor, don't go to a doctor. Call Team Wellness Online. With Team Wellness Online, you can see a doctor or a therapist without waiting, usually within 24 hours. Your televisit is private and 100% secure, and you can take all the time you want. So next time you need to see a doctor or therapist, call Team Wellness Online at 888-813-TEAM to make a virtual appointment, and we'll come to you.
Thank you for watching today and for exploring with us the many, many ways that creative, artistic expression can help heal trauma. Start with something that already interests you, such as painting, drawing, dance, or music. Choose something that's relaxing, not stressful. Remember that the goal is the creative process, not the end product. Take your time to be in the moment, away from worldly distractions. Note how the creative process is affecting you physically. Can you feel your muscles relax, your breathing calm, your senses engage? Feel free to try other modalities in addition to or instead of your first choice. Explore art therapy alone or with guidance of a trained art therapist. Enjoy the creative process freely, unselfconsciously, without inhibitions. Dance, paint, draw, sing like no one's watching. If you'd like to learn more about this or any mental health issue, please visit us on our website, myhealthymind.com, on Facebook at My Healthy Mind Show, or on Twitter. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it. Be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes of My Healthy Mind.
Until recently, people in psychiatric crisis had very few options. Basically, they could be taken to a hospital emergency room and inpatient treatment, or to jail. But now, there's a better way. Team Wellness Psychiatric Urgent Care Center of Metro Detroit, an official certified community behavioral health clinic. What this means is that now, people experiencing any kind of mental health or substance abuse crisis can be taken immediately and directly into treatment at our safe, certified crisis stabilization unit, to be immediately assessed, stabilized, and triaged by our team of intake medical doctors and psychiatrists, to undergo intensive psychiatric therapy for up to 23 hours in one of our private or semi-private rooms, to be fully evaluated for short-term care and given a warm handoff into proper ongoing treatment, and to receive continuing long-term clinical and peer support services based on a thorough, thoughtful discharge plan drawn up case by case. For those in the throes of a substance abuse crisis, our response would be the effective, evidence-based practice for treating substance abuse, including Suboxone. In cases of attempted suicide, certified suicide prevention specialists are on call, and our mobile crisis response team ready for dispatch. In any mental health emergency, our Psych Urgent Care unit is open 24/7 to receive and treat those in crisis. And in all these cases, law enforcement can bring subjects to Team Wellness to divert from jail or the emergency room. This kind of direct access will save time and save lives. Team Wellness Psychiatric Urgent Care. Certified, safe.